Everything to do with the Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot drama is also not helping at all in the least. In fact, it's only making things worse for the Disney image, for the overall Snow White box office results.
Disney doesn't know what a Disney princess is anymore, which is crazy.
Snow White. For generations, those two simple words conjured images of magic, innocence, and the birth of Disney's animation empire back in 1937. Most people remember the iconic dwarfs, the hauntingly beautiful evil queen, and that princess who brought fairy tales to life in a whole new way. Yet now, decades after Snow White first dazzled audiences, a new adaptation has overshadowed the original's timeless enchantment, except not in the way anyone had hoped. It all began as a straightforward plan. Disney would remake one of its earliest and most cherished animated features as a live-action spectacle. The project was surrounded by excitement and massive marketing campaigns, promising to blend old-school charm with modern sensibilities. But as soon as actress Rachel Zegler, chosen to portray the legendary princess, started speaking openly about the outdated themes of the original, controversy exploded. Critics pounced, fans drew battle lines, and the media ran with any headline that hinted at behind-the-scenes chaos. Before long, rumors surfaced that Disney was losing staggering amounts of money and that the studio was looking to recoup its losses by demanding a partial refund from its lead star. That's right. The house that built its reputation on family fantasies is now rumored to be threatening legal action to recover millions from its own actress. Observers are reeling at the notion. How did a remake of one of the most beloved fairy tales in film history turn into such an unmitigated fiasco? And is there any way for Disney or Rachel Zegler to walk away from this debacle unscathed? The situation continues to unravel in ways nobody anticipated, drawing in audiences who can't decide which they find more shocking, the actual movie or the circus that's formed around it. In the chapters to come, we're going to peel back the layers of this extraordinary meltdown. We'll see how the original Snow White became an untouchable gem in Disney's crown, why the live-action version looked promising at first, and how that optimism soured into a firestorm of online uproar, financial disarray, and potential legal disputes. Throughout it all, we'll try to grasp the central question: can something as iconic as Snow White even be modernized without alienating the very audience that treasures its legacy? When Walt Disney's original Snow White debuted in 1937, it wasn't just another animated feature, which the first ever full-length animated film in American history. Critics of the era anticipated disaster, insisting that no one would pay to watch cartoons for an entire movie. Walt Disney poured his personal resources into that bold vision, and, against all odds, it paid off. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs became a pioneering triumph, establishing the studio as the reigning champion of animated storytelling. Over time, that classic remained sacrosanct, shielded by nostalgia. Even as Disney churned out new blockbusters, like Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin, Snow White occupied a special place, a piece of unbreakable history that launched everything else. So, when news broke that Disney planned a lavish live-action remake, fans reacted with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Some looked forward to seeing how modern technology might breathe new life into the story's enchanting forest and beguiling villain. Others worried that any deviation from the 1937 masterpiece would be a step too far. At first glance, everything seemed lined up for success. The production boasted a substantial budget. Rising star Rachel Zegler, who'd already garnered attention for her singing ability and stage presence, was cast as Snow White. Meanwhile, Hollywood Alistair Gal Gadot came on board as the evil queen. The project's marketing teased a reimagined approach to the fairy tale, hinting at updated character dynamics and progressive themes for today's audiences. But even before a single frame hit theaters, dark clouds gathered. Rumors circulated about creative clashes between the production team and executives over how radically to alter the narrative. Online pockets of Disney enthusiasts grumbled that the footage teased in interviews and press junkets felt too different from the whimsical musical that enthralled viewers in the late 1930s. Then came Rachel Zegler's media appearances, which poured fuel on a spark that soon erupted into a raging wildfire. For decades, Disney's live-action strategy had worked wonders. From Cinderella to The Jungle Book, each remake generated headlines and healthy box office returns. Even The Little Mermaid, though not universally adored by critics, still drew a sizable crowd. The formula seemed straightforward: preserve just enough of the classic's heart, while making sure the story feels relevant to 21st century audiences. In theory, Snow White was a logical addition to this pattern. If anything, it seemed long overdue for the live-action treatment. After all, it was the crown jewel of Disney's early catalog. The film that proved feature-length animation could be profitable and artistic at the same time. Modern audiences have grown accustomed to remakes, reboots, and sequels, often embracing them as nostalgic comfort food. The plan was to hook older generations with fond memories while capturing younger viewers eager for a fresh take. Yet the stakes were astronomically high. Snow White isn't just any intellectual property, it's the bedrock of Disney's entire brand identity. Messing with its elements, from the dwarfs to the prince, from the songs to the iconic imagery, risked alienating a vast cross-section of fans. Add to that an ever-watching social media environment, ready to amplify any slip-up into a trending hashtag. And the studio faced a monumental pressure to get every detail exactly right, through big-budget promotional materials. Disney teased new songs and reworked plot points, including a more empowered Snow White who wasn't purely concerned with romance. The dwarfs were rumored to be replaced or heavily changed, a choice that raised eyebrows among enthusiasts who cherished the original group's distinct personalities. It seemed that each decision, however well-intentioned, magnified potential backlash. In Hollywood, it's common to see actors deliver polished, positive soundbites during press tours. They talk up the film's creative merits, avoid negativity, and praise the collaborative spirit on set. Rachel Zegler took a decidedly different approach. She openly called out the 1937 film for its archaic depiction of romance, describing the prince's behavior as creepy or unnecessary in today's climate. She also hinted that her version of Snow White would focus on leadership and ambition rather than true love's kiss. At first, some fans applauded her confidence. They saw her remarks as part of Disney's bigger push to update antiquated gender roles. But for every person praising the actress for modern sensibilities, another was outraged by what felt like a direct insult to one of Disney's most treasured animations. Social media lit up with harsh critiques, labeling Ziegler's commentary dismissive, ungrateful, or even condescending. Suddenly, her interviews became the focal point of controversy, overshadowing everything else about the production. From that moment on, the conversation morphed into a debate about loyalty, tradition, and respect for classic cinema. Many questioned whether Disney had indeed instructed Ziegler to talk up the new, relevant version by contrasting it with the perceived shortcomings of the original film. Others believed she had gone rogue, prioritizing her personal viewpoint over the legacy she was hired to champion. In either case, the negativity ballooned until it felt like a narrative overshadowing the actual movie. Making matters worse, anonymous sources leaked rumors of on-set tension. Perhaps these tensions existed, or perhaps they didn't. Hollywood gossip is notoriously fickle. But the public's perception was set. Something was amiss. By the time early test screenings or press reviews emerged, the controversies were already swirling too intensely to ignore. Negative buzz grew louder, with critics and audiences collectively bracing for a cinematic misfire. In the midst of the growing storm, whispers surfaced that Disney was hemorrhaging money on the production. Huge remakes typically cost a fortune. From lavish sets to extensive CGI and aggressive marketing campaigns designed to promote the film worldwide. Snow White, with its iconic brand recognition, was intended to be a major moneymaker. Instead, early box office projections suggested it would struggle to make a dent in recouping its staggering budget. Then came the most shocking rumor of all. Disney was so incensed by the film's plummet and Rachel Zegler's public commentary that it wanted some of her compensation back. If true, this was practically unheard of. Studios rarely, if ever, demand refunds from their actors. Even if a movie flops spectacularly, the usual recourse is to simply not rehire the star in future projects. But with an estimated financial loss that could soar into the hundreds of millions, Disney executives apparently felt cornered. Their rationale, again, according to these rumors, was that Ziegler's negative remarks about the original film had fueled the backlash that tanked ticket sales. It's a chilling notion for Hollywood, the biggest family entertainment empire, potentially hunting for scapegoats after a major public relations fiasco. Legal experts quietly speculated about what grounds Disney might use to justify such a demand. Had Ziegler violated a morality clause by publicly ridiculing core aspects of the intellectual property? Could the studio truly prove that her remarks caused actual financial harm? Most of the time, these cases get settled behind closed doors. They even progress beyond the rumor stage, Still, the mere possibility of a demand for restitution alarmed many in the industry. It felt like a line crossed, a sign that Disney could turn on its own talent. If box office returns didn't match the investment. Suddenly, Rachel Zegler wasn't just facing fan backlash. She was possibly staring down a legal or financial standoff that might tarnish her reputation and hamper her career. Yet she wouldn't be the only one pulled into the fray. Standing in stark contrast to Zegler's predicament is Gal Gadot, the actress chosen to portray the evil queen. Not long ago, Gadot herself had stirred controversies in different contexts because of her Israeli background and mandatory service in the IDF. In other public conversations, certain groups had faulted her for the actions of the Israeli government, or for her personal opinions, turning her into a lightning rod for political debate. Surprisingly, however, her role in Snow White generated far less scandal. One reason might be Gadot's measured approach during promotional interviews. While Zegler's statements about the original movie became internet fodder, Gadot chose her words carefully, keeping the spotlight off any contentious reinterpretations. She appeared primarily enthusiastic about exploring the evil queen's psyche, while avoiding direct criticism of the 1937 classic, whether it was personal choice or advice from a savvy publicist. That caution seems to have served her well, in an industry where every comment can be dissected and memed within minutes. Maintaining neutrality can be a shield against public outcry. Gadot's stardom and track record in blockbuster franchises like Wonder Woman also gave her a protective cushion. She was seen as bankable, charismatic, and uncontroversial enough in this specific context. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler, still comparatively newer to Hollywood fame, found herself more exposed to the slings and arrows of fan resentment. Some observers argue that Disney's rumored demand for a refund is, in part, a reflection of this disparity. The studio may feel it's easier to pin the blame on Zegler because of her outspoken interviews and the audience's negative reaction to them, rather than confront bigger missteps in the film's marketing or script rewrites. In any case, the difference between how the two actresses were perceived underscores one of Hollywood's oldest truths. When a movie bombs, accountability often falls hardest on those seen as the weakest link, whether that perception is justified or not. To understand why Disney might be so desperate, we need to look at the financial scope of this Snow White remake. Modern blockbusters, particularly from major studios, come with enormous production costs. Sets, costumes, CGI star salaries, and director fees all add up fast. Then there's marketing, global advertising campaigns, tie-in merchandise, brand collaborations, and more. Disney likely poured hundreds of millions into the entire endeavor. Early box office returns, if the rumors are correct, arrived with a thud. Critics who screened the film described it as lackluster and tonally confusing. Fans who ventured out reported feeling disconnected from characters that seemed to stray far from their beloved origins. Word of mouth spread rapidly. And in a day and age where negative social media buzz can be as damaging as any formal critique, that spelled doom for the film's profitability. A 70% week-to-week drop in ticket sales would all but confirm that the movie was failing to draw repeat viewings or new audiences. Merchants stuck with Snow White-themed items found themselves slashing prices to move unsold stock. Licensing deals that bank on nostalgia-driven hype saw little traction. Essentially, all the elements that create revenue streams for a Disney blockbuster sputtered. If accountants back at the studio started tallying the likely losses, the number could climb into the hundreds of millions, enough to make any shareholder panic. Within that climate of panic, stories of behind-the-scenes finger-pointing naturally emerged. Some insiders placed blame on marketing executives, who strayed too far from the original's cherished charm. Others looked at the film's creative team and wondered why they didn't realize fans might be furious if they felt the iconic dwarves or classic romance were belittled. Then came the idea that perhaps the lead actress had gone off script in her commentary, souring the public's appetite before the movie even had a chance. When a project this massive collapses, everyone searches for a scapegoat, and Rachel Zegler apparently ended up wearing the target. News of this meltdown not only captivated Disney fans, but also sent shockwaves through the broader entertainment industry. Disney had long prided itself on near-bulletproof branding, family-friendly, polished, with a dash of wonder that transcended age groups. For the brand that had spent almost a century cultivating goodwill through animated classics, theme parks, and philanthropic endeavors, a fiasco involving its very first feature-length property felt incongruous. Within online communities, fans fractured into distinct camps. One side argued that Exler's comments were disrespectful, fueling a backlash that had real monetary consequences. Another side countered that she was simply illustrating Disney's own directive to make Snow White more progressive, which the studio might have pushed behind closed doors. They viewed her as a convenient scapegoat for larger systemic miscalculations. Also, a broader conversation happening about whether Hollywood has gone overboard with reboots and live-action remakes. Each new attempt to modernize a beloved story risks alienating purists. At the same time, ignoring contemporary values can make a project seem irrelevant or toned up. Striking a balance is tricky, and in the social media age, any misstep is magnified tenfold. As viewers watch the Snow White remake unravel, many question if the era of unstoppable Disney live-action reimaginings may be approaching its limit. Financial analysts and media experts keep a close eye on the situation, predicting that Disney might pivot to safer bets or more faithful adaptations in the future. After all, no one wants a repeat of this meltdown. But the question lingers: who will take responsibility for the current fiasco? Will Disney come forward and own up to miscalculations in storytelling, marketing, or audience engagement? Or will the studio's rumored push to extract money from Rachel Ziegler overshadow any introspection? Most watchers suspect the matter might settle quietly, if it even reaches a courtroom. Public legal battles tend to expose emails, marketing directives, and behind-the-scenes details that studios prefer to keep under wraps. If Rachel Ziegler does have receipts indicating that she was simply echoing official talking points about the original film being outdated, Disney could find itself in an even bigger PR mess. Alternatively, if the studio can demonstrate contract clauses that were violated by her commentary, they might proceed more aggressively. Hollywood is no stranger to high-profile disputes. But a major family entertainment company openly penalizing an actress for the perceived failure of a film would be a new frontier. Some fear it would set a chilling precedent where creative talent becomes so fearful of stepping out of line that press tours devolve into bland corporate bullet points. Others contend that with the staggering sums at stake, studios are well within their rights to enforce accountability when an actor's remarks spiral into damaging publicity. Meanwhile, Rachel Exler's future hangs in the balance. Until recently, she was touted as a rising star with musical talents, widely praised for her performance in a previous film adaptation. Now she could be viewed by some in the industry as a lightning rod for controversy, someone who might overshadow a production with strong opinions. On the other hand, she also stands to become a rallying figure for those who believe that studios must accept responsibility for how they reshape iconic stories, rather than placing blame squarely on a performer's shoulders. So here we are, at the close of a story that feels more like a tangled drama than a family fairy tale. Snow White, a character who once symbolized the dawn of a new cinematic age, now finds herself at the center of divisive controversies and rumored legal showdowns. Disney's brand integrity is under scrutiny. Rachel Exler's reputation is precarious, and the entire industry is watching to see how this ends. Will Disney quietly back away from the rumored refund demand, allowing the entire fiasco to fade from the headlines? Or will the studio push forward with legal claims, risking even more negative press and prompting Ziegler to release any backstage communications that might drag Disney's marketing approach into the spotlight? In the broader sense, the Snow White debacle shines a glaring spotlight on the challenges of updating cherished classics. The audience that loves the original might not appreciate being told it's obsolete. Younger viewers might have no interest in a story if it clings too tightly to old-school tropes. Studios, caught between these competing expectations, sometimes attempt radical changes only to face blowback when fans feel betrayed. And in an era of instant online reactions, the distance between a dream project and a worst-case scenario shrinks rapidly. For Disney, which has traditionally guarded its family-friendly image as a precious commodity, the rumored demand for restitution is a striking move. It suggests that the studio sees no better path forward than to point a finger at its star. For Rachel Ziegler, it poses a question about how much control an actor truly has over their portrayal in press tours, especially if they were simply following guidelines set forth by their employer. As both sides weigh their next moves, the rest of us are left to wonder if this saga might reshape the way Hollywood handles legacy titles and the actors it hires to promote them. In the end, the fiasco could serve as a cautionary tale for all parties involved. Modernization has its limits. Nostalgia is powerful, but so is the need for stories to evolve with changing times. Finding that sweet spot isn't easy, but it's rarely wise to alienate fans who hold a classic near and dear to their hearts. Meanwhile, future actors stepping into the shoes of iconic roles might think twice before offering blunt critiques of the source material, especially when a media firestorm can erupt in a matter of hours. Perhaps the bigger lesson is that some legends carry a weight too immense to alter casually. Snow White's legacy spans nearly a century of cinematic history, enchanting generations. Trying to reshape that legend for a modern audience is always going to be an uphill battle. Maybe, in the aftermath of this unraveling, Hollywood will handle its next live-action reboot with more sensitivity and strategic savvy. For now, the story remains unfinished, the resolution unclear. But one thing is certain. The dream of a graceful modern update to Snow White has shattered, replaced by a cautionary epilogue about what happens when a beloved fairy tale collides with modern controversies and corporate bottom lines. Ultimately, we may never get a conclusive winner in this story. Disney may salvage its bottom line through other ventures, while Rachel Zegler might move on to new opportunities, assuming the legal rumors remain just that. But the real legacy of this entire episode is the enduring lesson in the delicate art of balancing reverence for the past with the desire to reimagine it for the present. It's a tightrope walk that demands respect for tradition and a keen understanding of audience expectations. And if the Snow White remake teaches us anything, it's that even the mightiest entertainment juggernaut can stumble when it forgets the power that nostalgia holds in people's hearts.